Yet another betrayal by the Socialist Prime Minister Keir Starmer in the United Kingdom, as he is now officially decided to give away British territory to the French in exchange for the British Army to be given to the European Army. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I'm Maya Tusi, and this is your latest news update from the continent of Europe, specifically the relationship between the United Kingdom and the European Union, led by the French and the mini Macron, the president of France. Now, it's not going too well for Keir Starmer in the UK when it comes to domestic politics. And when you are failing at domestic politics, as a political leader, what you end up doing is you start doing things on an international stage. Try to come across as a statesman. The problem is, if you're not a natural-born statesman like Keir Starmer, you might do a bit of a whoopsie. And yes, he's done a whoopsie. He's betrayed Britain, he's betrayed Brexit, and our fisheries. Now, let's give you guys the update. We are still waiting for more information about the details of this agreement, but everything goes back to yesterday when Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer and Scholz and all the other leaders got together, and there was a lot of conversations. I'm guessing there was a lot of interesting conversations, apart from the obvious when it comes to the British government selling out to the European Union and giving away British waters to the French and the EU. You are literally giving away British territories to the European Union in exchange for the EU Defence Union, which is the EU army, to actually do us a favour and control the British army to an extent. So we're giving away two things, but apparently one of them is a favour to us, like getting the British army and to be absorbed by this so-called EU army, which is the dream of Emmanuel Macron to be able to oppose NATO and America, right? They want to have their own European NATO. I don't know with what power, but he believes he can. So we had the United Kingdom being part of the EU for years and years. Now, for those of you who know, as part of that, the United Kingdom gave away its sovereignty to the EU. Then we left the EU, we had Brexit. Then there was this transition period, which was also harmful. Then we left, and now we're going back in, especially when it comes to British fisheries. Now, it's very important, even though it's a little bit technical. Let me explain why. First things first, under the EU's common fisheries policy, when we were part of the EU, the UK fishermen were limited to only 36% of the total catch from their own waters, British waters. Now, this is literally part of the United Kingdom, but we were part of the EU, so we had to share it, right? Fine. Betrayal, but that was the agreement. Things started to change. Now they're saying, because Ursula von der Leyen, the dictator of the European Union, wants the UK to be part of the EU army, the European version of NATO, she wants more access to the British waters, even though after Brexit, the British government signed a deal saying, okay, we've left, but when it comes to the British waters, you can still have about 4 or 5 years transition period. You could phase it out. Now it's been phased out, we're giving more control to the European Union instead of more control to the British people over their own territories. So the EU vessels extracted 6 times more fish, and by value, from UK waters than the British boats did from the EU waters. In 2012, France had a quota of 1,444 metric tons of cod in the Eastern English Channel compared to the UK's 152 tons. Now, this is just part of it. It gets worse. Because now we have this agreement, the transition period, remember? After Brexit. The UK-EU Trade and Cooperation Agreement, the Brexit deal. This allowed the UK to reclaim only 25% of the EU's fishing quota in UK waters, but it was supposed to be just for about 5 years, 5.5 years transition. maintaining significant EU access until basically mid-2026. We still have about a year to go. And everybody was getting excited. 2026, we're going to have full control of our territories. We can do whatever we want. Then the Labour Party won the election last year, and he's decided to take us back into the European project. Meaning, now, the UK seafood exports to the EU has plummeted by 83%. They are taking more fish. They don't need our fish, right? The whole thing is a betrayal. The whole thing, considering the waters around the United Kingdom, these isles, is supposed to be British. And just because we want to be part of this European army, we decided to give away our sovereignty. It's not just about sovereignty, which is also very important. We are destroying the livelihood of our British fishermen. That's what we're doing as British government. Now, one of these guys, his name is Paul Lines, recently went on GB News and always expressed his view on this whole thing. Watch this.
We were so looking forward for Brexit to happen. It never happened. We were so looking forward for when they talk about the trade and cooperation agreement deal, that we would get the waters back and we'd get the fish back, and we could even license foreign boats to come in our waters to help rebuild our local fleets. But no, he want to now play war games with trading off a little bit of fish to start playing war games in Europe and Ukraine. Well, what he want to do is he want to think who he's got to send out there to fight. Because what I know and what I see around me, we've got an army coming across that channel that he got to cope with first. Who's he going to pull these triggers on these guns? Because that's a joke. Everything has become a joke we're getting now. Fishermen just get pushed in the long grass and forgotten about. Till that come to war and they want minesweepers, that's just an absolute carve-up. And Europe, how much more can they have? They've got it all now. We've got nothing left. We sit there messing about in little boats, trying to get a living. And, you know, what are they got to reduce us to? Or do they want us finally gone? So the nail is right in the coffin and the British fishing industry is dead and forgotten about. And then what they got to trade off? They'll trade farmers off next. They'll have Frenchmen growing spuds in all farmers' fields. That's got absolutely pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. I've got no trust, and I'm never going to trust a politician again, because they you know, they're like kippers, aren't they? They're two-faced and gutless.
Absolutely spot on, Paul Lines. Now, this is a very serious matter. What I'm about to tell you next, what I'm about to show you next, you're gonna laugh. It's ridiculous. But we have someone who's angry about this and is very serious about fixing the problem. In the middle of all this, the leader of the opposition, the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, who now has fewer supporters than Hezbollah have pages, she says, I send a warning to the European Union. The moment I become Prime Minister, we will reverse this. What? You have no support. Nobody's taking Kemi Badenoch seriously. Nobody. But she will reverse this when she becomes Prime Minister. If you can try. Nobody believes the Tories right now. Any Tory who was part of the previous cabinet, you can't talk. Your former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, agreed to the transition deal. The Brexit deal. You all agreed. You celebrated. Now, we do have some good Conservatives who are not part of the previous cabinet. Harriet Cross, she's a Scottish Conservative. She, earlier on, stood in the House of Commons and called on the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, to not sell out Scottish fishermen as part of this deal. So obviously it's a little bit too late, but it's important for MPs to actually do their job. This is what Harriet said.
Recent poll by the Scottish Fishermen's Federation showed that 87% of Scots believe that the UK should control access to our fishing waters. 2/3 of seafood that's landed in the UK comes into Scotland, and it is a vital part to our economy and many of our coastal communities. So can the Minister assure the House and rural and fishing communities across the country that the Prime Minister will not negotiate away any control of our waters during his EU reset later this month?
Now you can ask these questions, it doesn't really get anywhere. We've reached the point in Britain and countries like Britain in Western Europe that people must do something. They must express their anger. We have a right to protest democratically. Where are all these grassroots movements? Where are all the community leaders? Now the fishermen, they're going to organize their protests. The rest of the country got to bury their heads in the sand. Sometimes they say they care. But where are the champagne socialists? Where are all those lefties who say we care? We care about those who are vulnerable. We care about those who are suffering. Unless it's the British natives, then they don't care. Unfortunately, this is an ongoing development, which means we're going to get more sad updates about the details of this betrayal. Keir Starmer is also going to be allowing more migration from the EU as part of this, apart from the EU Defence Union nonsense. Ivan says, did they seal the deal over a line of powder? There's been a lot of memes since yesterday. It's been quite funny, actually. Aaron says, can we cancel this crap in Starmer's blood? That sounds a little bit violent, so obviously, officially speaking, we do not condone that behavior, Aaron. But thank you for your comment. Ivan says, Starmer and Macron get on like a house on fire. All right, we will have more updates on what this means, by the way, because we just got some new updates about how there were 3 separate incidents now confirmed in terms of fires. You know how we've been talking about how there's all these mysterious fires and explosions in Iran? Well, now it's happening in London and all linked, connected to Keir Starmer somehow. We'll have more information on that later. Ivan says that she has been on the powder too. Is that Kemi? I think Kemi Badenoch is too goody to be on the powder. Tony from Australia says, so what is England going to do about us dragging England back to the caves? He clearly hates your country. Yep. Do something or all will be lost. And Kimmy is not an adult name. It's Kemi. But yeah, Kemi's also... That's not her official name. It's a shorter version of her longer version of her name. Snow for a bit of salmon. What a joker. To be fair, I don't think he gave away British sovereignty for a bit of powder. That was always going to happen. Winnie the Pooh from Canada says, to quote Sir William Wallace, freedom! Yes. I'm glad that it was clarified that Winnie the Pooh was actually from Canada, because everyone would have thought it was President Xi. 2C equaled the only unbiased source of information. I appreciate that, but I do have my own biases. I'm just honest and open about them. Now let's get some non-super chats. I'm not going to forget about you guys. Blue Sapphire says, yeah, you Brits must protest this government. You must take those traitors out before more of your country is sold away. Yeah, first we had the Chagos Islands, then the British waters, then the British Army giving it away to the European Union. That's fun. Which, by the way, that's actually also the fault of the Tories, because Theresa May, the former Prime Minister, started this nonsense, signing a deal in the name of cooperation with the European Union Army. It's a sellout. Look after your country first. He is a traitor who is going to be earning lots of money for his retirement fund, for his EU support. We need a criminal inquiry ASAP. There's a very good point. It's not really just about the retirement, pension fund, things like that. Politicians, especially failed politicians who are promoters of globalism, they are rewarded for failing. Meaning, after they get out of office or they get kicked out of office, they join another gravy train. They either get a job at NATO or the United Nations or the World Health Organization or the World Trade Organization or the International Monetary Fund. Someone somewhere would give them a good gig. And then they have a great time. There's no consequences in politics, in democratic politics, no consequences for failing. The only consequence is you're going to lose your current seat. That's not really a bad consequence, because again, you're going to get rewarded, you're going to get promotions by your friends. The good news, he's making it easier for Reform UK to win the next election. I can't wait for Farage to sabotage Starmer's plans. Yeah, they're just making it so easy now for Reform UK to take over. And especially when Kemi Badenoch, as Tory leader, says that sort of stuff like, oh, I will reverse this deal when I'm Prime Minister. I'm like, okay, dear, if that's not really going to do anything. You were sold a lie, mate. It was all about selling out to the Yanks. You were going to lose either way. I don't think this person knows what was been going on in the UK and Brexit. Selling out to the Yanks. This was a narrative that was caused by... It was quite interesting. During the Brexit referendum, when we left the EU Ramonas, the globalists, all these leftists, were going around, on the one hand, they were saying a few things. These Brits, they are racist, they hate Europeans, and they want to be isolationists. And then they said, oh, they're leaving the EU because they want to sell out to America. Meanwhile, they also asked the American president, remember who it was? Yeah, Barack Hussein Obama. They asked him to join their campaign, their pro-EU campaign, to threaten the Brexiteers. The same America that was apparently going to buy out Britain. Don't know why. Why would you buy Britain? It's like when they said Donald Trump is going to be buy the National Health Service in the UK, the NHS. I'm like, it's not worth much. It's in a lot of debt. So they were attacking us, saying, well, you want to be isolationists, you hate Europeans, which we don't, apart from the French left-wingers, and in Paris. Apart from that, they were saying, well, we're going to ask the president of America, the same country we're accusing you of selling out to come and help us. And then Obama came to London, made a speech during the referendum, which is so naughty. You can't get a foreign leader to interfere in your vote. And they told him, he spontaneously said, now this is very important for those of you who are American and Brits, you understand the difference between what I'm about to say, this sentence. If the UK votes to leave the EU, he said, the UK will be at the back of the queue. Now, if you're American, you probably noticed the problem with that sentence. He didn't say it spontaneously. Americans don't say queue. Obama would have said back of the line. He said queue. Because it was briefed by Downing Street. They already had that conversation. And he was trying to manipulate and influence the result of the referendum. I'm glad he did that. I'm glad they got the IMF, the whole of the world, to get involved, because the more they got these globalists, the easier it became for the UK to vote to leave the EU. Now it's time for all the other European countries, because I remember back then, I cannot believe, by the way, it's about 10 years ago now. Is it? Almost 9 years ago. Still feels like yesterday. There were a lot of media, mainstream media people interviewing me, because I was leading part of the campaign, the Vote Leave campaign. And they were saying, why are you helping these British white racists to leave the EU? I said, okay, firstly, you can call them whatever you want. They're going to vote to leave anyway. Secondly, the reason I and people like me are supporting the Brexit side, we don't just want Brexit for Britain. We want Brexit for all the European countries. All the European countries must become independent, and they need to take back their sovereignty. Doesn't mean they have to hate each other. Doesn't mean they shouldn't trade with each other. You can still cooperate. Put your country first if you're German. Put your country first if you're Dutch. And you can also trade with your neighbors. Just don't sell out your sovereignty to an unelected dictatorship. It's disgusting. Now, those in the Eastern European countries, they've been sold a massive lie that the only way you will be breathing and you could leave your house in safety is by being part of the EU. If you're not part of the EU, then you're just going to die. And they believe that. And then they gave them some free money to their government. And they're like, look at us, we're getting the money from the EU. Socialism does not work. Bad idea. Matt says, Starmer does not care about the UK. All he cares about is being with the elites of the world. Look at the smile on his face when he's with them. The thing is, he's actually said it. Remember about 2-3 years ago when he was the leader of the opposition, he openly said he prefers Davos, as in the World Economic Forum, compared to Westminster, which is the UK Parliament, the mother of all parliaments, actual democracy. So he prefers Davos because it's a lot easier. He can do whatever he wants without any pressure, without any accountability or scrutiny on him. So this comment is not completely inaccurate. Now, let's go back. There's Matt says, you what makes me laugh. You what makes me laugh? I think it's you know what makes me laugh, yeah. The EU are not elected and people just let that slide. Yeah, but these are the people who claim to be pro-democracy, right? All these like liberal leftists. Like, yeah, they are the ones who say, oh, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Woo. Okay, you don't actually have a democracy in the EU. Your leader is literally a dictator. She wasn't elected by anybody. You can't even get rid of her. Only if they decide for her to go, then she can go. Ursula von der Leyen. Anyway. Blue Sapphire says, everyone needs to exit the EU. It's a socialist dictatorship in disguise of a trade organization. Collective exit will break the EU at its core because the moment your funding is gone, it's nothing. So you won't necessarily need a collective exit, all of them. You need the key countries to leave. So it's quite interesting. The last few years, there have been a lot of speculations about some countries leaving, right? Either some of the countries, major countries, who are becoming more right-wing, like Germany or France. That's not what's going to bring down the EU. It's not also countries like Hungary. Nope. There's a very specific group of countries. The moment they start leaving, and it's difficult to see, but trust me, they are very fiscally conservative, despite what the propaganda from the left says. I'm talking about the Nordic countries, and of course, the Netherlands. When you look at the countries like Denmark and the Netherlands, and even Austria, these countries have always, inside the EU, fought against stupid policies, financial, fiscal policies, and of course all the other issues. When it comes to the managing the debt, borrowing money, printing money, it will be more likely the moment these countries start leaving, just one or two, then the EU will not be brought down in a sense like the Roman Empire. Actually, it will be more like the Roman Empire because it will devolve into something else. It's not going to be like East Germany sort of situation. They will just rename it, rebrand it, and change the format. They might not have the political entity of it, but they will just turn it into going back to the trading bloc. But as Blue Sapphire says in disguise of a trade organization. Firstly, it doesn't really claim to be a trading organization, but they claim to be a free trade zone. They're not. They are a protectionist bloc. They have external barriers. They hate countries that are not part of the EU, the 27 nations. Brussels does not like any other country or continent, unless they're part of them. They don't like any country who's part of the EU to trade with others. They banned it. They banned countries from signing their own trade deals. They say, we'll do it on your behalf, as a collective, like how Karl Marx would have wanted. Normal trade zones, like NAFTA, even though it's not perfect, Canada would still be allowed to sign their own trade deals with other countries. The United States will be allowed to sign their own trade deals with other countries. That's a normal trading bloc, actually promoting trade. Now these idiots are going around calling President Trump a protectionist. He's not a protectionist. He's actually pro-trade, but he's not pro-unfair open trade with countries who take advantage like China or the EU. So he cancels trade deals, yeah. To renegotiate. He did the same with NAFTA. He's doing the same thing right now with China and all the others. Now they call him a protectionist, The whole of the European Union is protectionist. They refuse to do any cooperation unless you sell out your sovereignty to them and your soul. Any country that signs any agreement with the European Union, if they're not part of the EU, even if they're not part of the EU, they have to agree to the European Union having their judges and their bureaucrats setting the rules. That's not normal. So if the UK and the US actually sign a proper trade deal, they haven't, it's what we saw the other day is not a real trade deal. Both sides will agree mutually to respect each other's rules. That's it. The European Union say, no, you have to agree with our side, our rules, our standards. And if you violate it, we're going to take you to a court. Which court? Their court. Literally, the European Court of Justice. That's what they do. The whole thing is a sham. The whole thing is a scam. Do you think that Britain will reclaim its identity in the future? What's the path forward for European countries to reclaim their identity? Now, I don't think Britain, depending on what you mean by Britain, not the Britain of the 1920s or 1890s, no, or even 1950s, no, that's gone. That's just a product of multiculturalism and mass migration. That's gone. But you can aim to bring back, let's say, the Britain of 1990s, right? Relatively, 1980s, 1990s. That is relatively possible, but the country is completely changed. And they're all in denial. A lot of people are still in denial, not people who are watching this, not you guys. The rest of the country, the political establishment, the media, they are absolutely in denial. I mean, some of them wanted to happen, wanted to change. But even those who think they care about the flag, relatively, those who think they care about, oh yeah, of course I care about Britain, like the likes of David Cameron, former Prime Minister, those guys, Tony Blair, they don't know what they're doing. Well, Blair thinks he knows what he's doing, but complete destruction is the only option for them. Anyway, Stu says Starmer prefers the EU because their powder is better. I don't think that's true though. Unless he goes to Albania. Well, actually, then that's that side, the other side of Europe. Graham says that Starmer is doing a deal with Colombia, allegedly. It would have been quite interesting if yesterday, with all the memes about the Powdergate stuff that came out, everybody was speculating everything, right? While that was happening, I would have loved that to be happening coincidentally during a period where the British government was coincidentally negotiating with Colombia for a trade deal. That would have been brilliant. There would have been so many conspiracy theories. Starmer is promoting Colombia's powder. Super sticker from David F. Thank you, David. And Mark Farley says, hey, Mr. Tusi, is there a Patriots March this year? So, as far as I know, as Tommy Robinson gets released, which will be sooner than expected, hopefully, because they have now removed the documentary that they made from his X account. The plan originally was, and I think still is, to hold a freedom rally, obviously in celebrations of Tommy being released and being free again, but also just symbolically the rest of the country. That's the only one I know of. And last time I saw Tommy, actually the time before that, when I went to prison to visit him, he did mention that's the plan, and he said he was going to aim for beginning of September. And actually I said my wedding is around that date, those days. And he kindly said, okay, good, we're going to move the rally. We're going to change the date just because of my wedding. So that was kind. I love how the whole plan completely changed because I have a wedding to make sure I can actually attend as well. So if that's still the plan, obviously I'll keep you guys posted on the development of all that. We don't know. I think that's what's going to happen anyway. Now, so many comments. Macron, I just sniff a line and everything feels... Oh no. Okay, this is funny. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, while we still have a bit of the UK left, Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already from all around the world. And of course, if you want to get much more out of this channel, you can join our independent platform as well to get access to documentaries, premium shows, chat forum if you want to talk to me directly as well. We're going to have a couple of very, very important exclusive interviews that we'll be releasing on that platform. The best way you can join is by going directly on www.tusi.tv or find the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.